You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast for part 2 of our Monday, the 22nd of August show. We talked about the Test match, we talked about England, we talked about South Africa, we talked about lots of things, and now we're going to talk about the 100. So thank you for staying with us if you have, and well,
see you next time. Otherwise,
yeah, cool. Before we get into things, just a few messages. We are at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us on Patreon, and this is in the show notes. So if you just scroll down or whatever, patreon.com/the Cricket Pod to support the show directly. It keeps us going. It's the number one thing you can do to support us. You get a bunch of stuff for being involved that way. And we are sponsored by manscaped.com, the best testicle shavers in the business. Use the code CRICKETPOD at manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping. Max, how are your testicles?
Yeah, well groomed.
Well groomed.
Very happy.
So as are mine. Ross,
Yeah.
how are your testicles?
Not that well groomed. Need to.
You better use your lawnmower, hadn't you?
Need to
get on it.
give yourself a trim. Otherwise, Mrs. Ross, she'll leave you. That's a fact. That is a fact. Manscaped.com. Use the code CRICKETPOD to keep Mrs. Ross happy.
Very good.
Or to attract Mrs. Ross after Mrs. Ross leaves Ross.
Yeah, quite possibly. Let's talk about 100, Jack.
Let's talk about 100. Right. I don't know. Where's best to start here? I think maybe we should, because we're approaching the business end of the tournament. Maybe we should very briefly say goodbye to a few teams.
Yeah, by Welsh Fire, you were out from game 1.
Yes. We can do it not in much more depth than that. For Welsh Fire, definitely not more depth. 4 wins, 4 games, 4 losses. They're losing the 5th game as we speak. They were 1 for 3 today, and then they ran out Joe Clark to make things worse. So that's a shame. They are currently playing Southern Brave, who are also going out, even though they're going to win today. Max, a little bit of a disappointing tournament for them. Hampered by injuries, right?
Yeah, we had them down as early favourites based on the squad, but Chris Jordan being injured, Tymon Mills being out of the competition pretty hampered their bowling attack quite a lot, and they haven't really fired that well with the bat despite a decent looking lineup. So yeah, I mean, combination of just not turning up and a bit of bad luck, and it's easy for things to switch quite quickly in short format cricket, isn't it?
And Ross, you get to do the last rites for the Northern Superchargers. 6 games, 2 wins, 4 defeats.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to really summarise them, if I'm perfectly honest. They're a bit of a weird team. If I'm like, I look at that side and I'm just like, they should have been better than they have been this tournament. They kind of went with the experience, but they just couldn't seem to keep up, right?
They've shown glimpses, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, some of their players have looked like the dog's bollocks, probably shaved as well. But in terms of Adam Lyth has looked brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and has done himself like a world of good in terms of England contention, all that kind of stuff. Why the door isn't shut on Adam Lyth, which I think is a good thing. But if you look at some of the others, you're a little bit just like, you've gone for big money and you've failed to deliver anything. Faf du Plessis, what has he done in this tournament? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then their bowling lineup, again, just flattered to deceive here. And when you get people like Piers Morgan, as we talked about earlier, raging why Adil Rashid hasn't got an IPL contract and all this kind of stuff, like the performances of this, the pitches might not turn loads, but if I'm perfectly honest, this is the kind of stuff that this tournament is built for good spinners to kind of show up and do well. And he's done okay. He's not set the fire, not set on fire. So yeah, the one I do really like is David Willey. I always think he's an underrated cricketer, and actually I think he always seems to deliver quite a lot for his troubles. But
right, so they're the teams that are out, and that means we move on to the big boys. The biggest of boys in the tournament so far, and they have been actually genuinely impressive. The Trent Rocket Men, Max. Are you a Rocket man?
I'm all about Trent Rockets, man. They've been excellent, haven't they? And in no small part down to their opening partnership with the bat. I mean, David Milan is the top scorer so far, and he's been pretty impressive alongside Alex Hales. It's a fairly formidable lineup, and they've just sort of blown away most teams whenever they've turned up. Just overpowered them essentially. I think that they've taken people down with a lower order. I mean, Daniel Sams is 50 springs to mind. So they've got options all the way through with the bat, even down into the bowling. And Samit Patel, the wily old fox, still doing the business. They've got the good mix of bowling. They're a decent unit. I think that's sort of what we liked about them at the start, wasn't it? They sort of got a lot of bases covered, and
I think what we didn't
Rashid Khan's
anticipate
back now as well, so that helps.
He's gone now as well.
He's
though.
gone again.
He came and
went
like a fart in the wind. But Luke Wood's been really good. That hadn't been anticipated, right? But the left armour has bowled quick. He's taken loads of power play wickets, and it's really disrupted some of the other teams who are obviously trying to go aggressive up top. And he's been a big reason why they've won some of those games.
I saw Dan Weston say he's the best bowler he's seen in the tournament either year.
Okay, wow.
Which is big praise.
That is big praise.
Yeah. Especially because he had Adam Milne, didn't he, last year? So,
England England exclusively pick left arm seamers now, don't they? So
he's in.
Well, what's the point in having a domestic short format thing if you're not going to pick players who perform really well in it, right?
Exactly. I've really enjoyed Trent Rockets. I thought they'd be quite boring and quite one-paced and a little dull, but they've actually not been like that at all. David Milan is box office in this tournament. He's really, really good fun to watch.
They also do absolutely carry a player. Tom Moores should not be playing in the 100. He is not good enough.
It's good to have a mascot.
Sacrifice. We're going to bring back the sacrifice logic.
Yeah. The sacrifice is it's good to appease the cricket gods by having one guy who is just there to be unlucky and to look like a fool.
They're so good. They're so good. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and so it's nice for him as well, isn't it, Ross? I mean, what they're going to do? Play with 10?
He's a wicket keeper, so fine.
He gets to come along, hang out with the boys, get Joe Root's autograph.
They could bat him 11 like the Southern Brave women did today. Just pick a wicket keeper and stick him in at 11.
Okay, right. So that's that. There's a few other teams. We've done the top, we've done the bottom. And then there's the mix. There's one game. There's actually one specific game I want to talk about this week, and that was between Trent Rockets and Oval Invincibles. I don't know whether either of you saw it. I presume you at least know the result. In this match, basically, there was a situation whereby both teams had won 3, lost 1, and the maths of that situation meant that whoever won had about an 85% chance of going through, and whoever lost had about 45% chance of going through. The team I want to focus on, Tom Moody's Oval Invincibles. I mean, Moody's got previous with Sunrisers Hyderabad for doing weird things like this, but Oval batting second quite literally refused to try and get the score, and I think batted for net run rate. From more or less ball one. Here's what I propose. Minus points, Ross.
Yes, please. For any team that's coached by Tom Moody.
You start, every time you lose and you don't try and win and you've got Tom Moody as your coach, -5.
But it's not the first time that we've seen some questionable approaches by the Oval Invincibles, right? There was that unbelievable that game that we got press passes to, where we saw Narain we hit 6 off the last ball to win it, when London Spirits bowlers lost their head at the death. But at the start of that, they lost 4 wickets straight out of the blocks, and then they were pedestrian almost. And it's not the first time, and it's been a little bit disappointing. And Max, you're a big Surrey fan, big Oval Invincibles fan. Like they have the talent should be good enough. Their talent should be good enough to get into the final 3. And at the moment, there's a question mark around it, I think, Max.
Yeah, there's a massive game tomorrow against Phoenix. That's going to be it's big for both sides, isn't it? Basically, with the equal records and pretty close net run rates. So could be that net run rate would be be all important. It's just 0.05 behind the Manchester Originals. So perhaps it'll turn out to be a really shrewd move by the Oval Invincibles. But
It obviously wasn't though.
No,
They-
I mean
Ja-
they're a
Jason
side.
Roy-
They're a side that should be able to chase 180. You know, even if you forget that Jason Roy
go.
can't bat at the moment, and but you got the likes of Will Jacks, and you know Jordan Cox is having a really good tournament. He's been batting really well, and they've got. I mean, there's power. They bat deep. You know, both the Currans, Sunil Narayan. Like Sunil Narayan comes in like 8, 9 sometimes, and he can.
He's opened.
Yeah, he does it all, doesn't he?
Tom Curry's batted well as well. Like it just didn't make sense to me.
It's just, I mean, you should be going into games to try and win them, shouldn't you? It's a really curious.
Tom Curran didn't even bat.
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
Yeah, I can't explain it for you. I'm afraid it doesn't make sense, you know. But it is what it is. They are still in the competition, so hopefully tomorrow will be a really, really good game because it's important for both of them.
I'm there as well.
Cool, and then that leaves three teams that are also in the hunt: the Spirit, the Originals, and the Phoenix. We talked a lot about them on various other shows. If we say Trent Rockets are going to make it, and Oval Invincibles, we talked about them and what they're up to. Who are the two? Who are the two basically, Ross? Spirit, Originals, Invincibles, or Phoenix?
Well, I've got some of I've got their fixtures down here, and I think Trent Rockets are playing Southern Brave and Welsh Fire. I think they'll win both of those, and they'll finish on 14 points, and they're finishing first.
Yes.
London Spirit have got Welsh Fire next, so that's a guaranteed win. Takes them to 10 points. They've got a pretty decent net run rate as well. Yeah, and then they can afford to lose to Oval, and then they probably can afford to lose to Phoenix. I think Birmingham Phoenix will beat Oval tomorrow if the other game's anything to go on, and I think actually the flat deck at the Oval actually suits that lineup.
Not always been that flat. Quite a lot of used pitches, especially because they've got to keep one for the Test match. So.
And so if that's the case, then I also think they've got the bowlers to exploit that slow pitch. I think that not only they've got Narayan that are fine, that's a bit of a danger. But I think having the likes of Imran Tahir, Liam Livingston, and Moeen Ali with a spin, I think helps them and gives them a little bit of the wow factor. I think Birmingham Phoenix then probably beat Manchester Originals. And then London Spirit they're losing their best players at the moment. Did you say that? So they've lost Maxwell. Josh English has come in, who's not a bad player, but he's not Glenn Maxwell.
And they've lost, but shouldn't have lost Zach Crawley.
Yeah,
and Pollard should be going as well.
So that's huge losses. But that's not to say I still think London Spirit have got a good little core of players. But then Oval, I think they'll lose tomorrow. They'll probably beat London Spirit in the London derby. I just don't think that's going to be enough. Like,
what does that mean? I haven't kept up. I'm afraid.
So Trent Rockets on 14. Birmingham Phoenix on 12, finishing in second, and then London Spirit and Oval both finishing on 10 is what I think will end up happening, and London Spirit will go through on net run rate.
I think that could happen. I think Birmingham have to win 3, don't they? To guarantee going through. Yeah. Well, 2 might get through. But yeah, it's going to be good. It's good. Running's going to be good. On the women's side of things, Birmingham Phoenix and Southern Brave are basically through. Only 6 matches in this comp. Southern Brave have won 4. They dispatched the hapless Welsh Fire, who have yet to win a game on either side of the gender divide.
It's quite interesting. Like, I've got a couple of Welsh friends, and when the rugby's
big Welsh Fire fans,
when the rugby's on, they're big on Wales. Wales are amazing. They're the best country you've ever seen. The English are a bunch of mother pricks. When they're not doing too well in the cricket, and they'll be the first ones to tell you that Simon Jones is Welsh, they're nowhere to be seen.
In fairness, there are no Welsh players in Welsh Fire. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they need some more homeboys.
Yeah. Also haven't come across many partisan Welsh cricketers, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
Or cricket fans.
So
the rugby brings out a different side. And the
I'm going to vote down this theory. They have been rubbish though. Southern Brave have also been. No, they've been good. Sorry,
they've been the opposite.
Yeah, that's how we got onto Welsh Fire, wasn't it? Because they smashed Welsh Fire.
Yeah.
So Southern Brave and Birmingham Phoenix, they're both probably going through. And then it's like a big bun fight.
Yeah.
Into third place. So at the moment, Trent Rockets occupy it with 2 wins, 2 losses. Oval of 2-1 record. Northern Superchargers 2-2, but a worse net run rate. with 2 or 3 games to play each, that could be pretty interesting. Now, Northern Superchargers might be the outsider here because Jemima Rodrigues has gone home, and they've gone from like the best top 3 to iffy. However, Laura Wolfart suddenly started hitting
She's
sixes.
having an unbelievable tournament, isn't she? She's sort of carried them to their 2 victories essentially. So I mean, she carries on playing the way she is. Maybe they'll be all right without Jemima Rodrigues, but it is a big loss for them, isn't it? We said before the tournament started how important the better players are in the women's side of things, and they've got quite a bit of net run rate to catch up on. So they definitely would be the outsiders, especially with the Invincibles with a game in hand over the other 2. But it certainly looks like being an exciting finish between the 3 of them. Where would you put your money?
I don't know. I think Oval probably because of the game in hand factor. And Trent Rockets, they have to play Welsh Fire, gimme, for sure. But they also have to play Southern Brave, which is not a gimme.
Yeah.
For sure. So, if I think Oval will do it, but it could be close. Ross, your thoughts?
It's again in this tournament. I think that where the best players are compared to the worst players is such a massive difference, and the drop off in quality are there. So I think you've got to back the teams that just have the Australians, and 2, the international cricketers. So I kind of agree with Max.
Okay, we have a handful of questions, sort of roughly on this topic that we'll get through pretty quickly. Vivek says, "Can the Welsh Fire just stop playing?" Ross, is that an option? Is there any rain about?
I think they need
fire out.
There does need to be an inquiry, I think, like governmental inquiry into how badly that franchise is run. Like we always used to think, well, we do think that Sunrisers Hyderabad are so badly run, it's embarrassing. Welsh Fire have some serious questions to be asked of them.
On both sides.
I mean, how would you get it so wrong? Like the whole point of a franchise tournament where everyone has the same salary caps is that everything should be kind of equal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone has the same opportunity to put together a good side. So the difference between the best side and the worst side shouldn't be as big as it is with Welsh Fire. It's insane. How is it so bad?
It's a seriously impressive feat that they are as bad as they are.
On both sides as well. It's not just like they've got one right and one wrong. Like
they're going to lose every game of the tournament.
That would be so good.
But on both sides,
can we do relegation from the hundreds? Can we promote Glamorgan?
There's nothing about either of the teams that I think, do you know what? They've got a chance of winning a game here. At least at the start, when I thought, they might get Johnny Bairstow to play. They had an opportunity because he'd single-handedly win them a couple. It's going to be 6-0, and it's going to be 8-0.
Yeah. Dan says, does anyone really care who wins the 100?
Dan seems quite upset about the 100 county cricket. I'm guessing it's the same guy who asked the question about. Yeah, I think people do care. I think more and more people are caring about it, actually. And I was at a christening yesterday, and loads of people came up to me and were talking about cricket, saying how much they love the 100. I think it's been really, really positive, and it's been men, women, and children. So
there's a lot of shirts about, a lot of people buying the merch.
Yeah,
I think the bucket hats are.
I want a bucket hat, but they're 30 quid.
No, bucket hats. That's ridiculous. Bucket hats in the bin. I'm anti bucket hat. I think the problem for me is just like the whole 100 versus county cricket thing that's kind of been manufactured by making the 100. Basically, it's sort of been put in as if like it's we said it before, like accidentally they've made a decent cricket tournament, but in sort of doing so, they've kind of decided that anyone who already likes cricket is not worth thinking about with this tournament.
I don't think that's true.
You know what? I don't think anyone really cares who wins 100, but I also not really sure you're supposed to. And that leads us on to the next question from Regista. How long until we have leagues dominating the cricket calendar and have internationals on the side, just like we do in football? How long, Ross? How many years?
It's already here, mate. It's already here.
Max?
14.
14.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't think it will ever fully happen. I think a lot of these tournaments probably are going to go bust. There
aren't enough players or time for it to work.
there are enough players probably, but I think the amount of money
there aren't
that they're
enough players
trying
for
to
it to
pay
be
players.
like high enough quality across the whole picture, right? Because we've already got a clash between the South Africa one and the
They'll just move
UAE
it.
one,
They'll
right?
just oh yeah. So there will be a bit of competition.
And then you've got the PSL and the IPL are going to be running alongside each other in a couple of years or whenever it is.
I mean,
and
that's
then
not
like
a problem, is it?
the BPL is even more like even more screwed. So I mean, I reckon there'll be a concentration of things that will sort of bring stuff to a kind of a natural equilibrium where it sort of works. Hopefully,
I think either they'll go bust or they will make enough money to keep going. But it will be, and I think I said this to you before, Max. I think it will end up being like professional cycling.
Yeah.
Where it's like the teams are sort of sponsored by a benefactor, Mumbai Indians. I mean, they've got the MI family, haven't they? And you get like a carousel of these players going around the world, and you might care about the tournament in your country, but you probably don't really follow any other cricket till the IPL's on.
Yeah,
the
Tour de France.
Yeah, exactly. Like the IPL being the analogy for the Tour de France. And I don't know whether that is a particularly sustainable or good model. Like a bunch of really disjointed tournaments that nobody literally, to go back to Dan's point, that literally nobody cares about.
It's a hard break to make from following a county and being sort of a fan of a club in a way, to then end up with a franchise where you have to manufacture some sort of reason for following them.
I think we're at a really interesting point where there is going to be a huge battle between it, just like golf is in at the moment, between the battle of the Saudi Arabia Live tournament and the PGA stuff. There's going to be a huge like player thing. You're seeing it in in Australia at the moment around like kind of Chris Lynn's contract, David Warner being tied down to playing in the BBL instead of the others. Like, it's going to be really interesting to see that dynamic. And I think it's going to be a couple of years really until we see who ends up winning it and what that structure ends up looking like in kind of 5 years' time. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Ujral asked us a question about the Asia Cup, and we'll probably do an Asia Cup show later. So we're going to skip that one. And Ben says, and we didn't really talk about the originals. This is maybe a nice way to end. How different does the original season look with Hasaranga? Bar the left-handers issue, they have the most powerful batting lineup. And they do. They might accidentally not accidentally. They still are in with a decent shout of making the finals, aren't they? And you can't deny. Nobody here can deny that the originals are quite good fun, being this boom and bust mayhem team.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just a shame
they're a little bit Kings 11 Punjab Kings.
They have a little bit of a Kings 11 situation, don't they? Didn't Kings 11 have like a bazillion right-handers too? And
they were having to play Shahrukh Khan.
So I think they'd have probably done better. I mean, they lost. Though. That's bad. But if they had Hasaranga, I think they'd have won the game that they lost, where they got 180, if they had another good leg spinner. Or if they had the second best leg spinner in the world.
Yeah.
Which, probably not that, is he?
No, that is a big miss.
Yeah. Anyway, right, lads, we're going to wrap up. We've done a bit longer than we expected, as usual. Any final messages, Ross?
No, thank you for listening. And remember to follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And sign up to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/the Cricket Pod.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.